Hey Liz, have you read the chapter on swimmers, boats, and paddles in our whitewater trip guidebook? It's pretty comprehensive about what to do in different scenarios.
Yeah, I just finished it. The part about self-rescue really stood out to me. They emphasize having a positive mental attitude a lot, which makes sense. It can really change how you handle an emergency.
Absolutely. I liked how they mentioned the difference between a helpless victim and a paddler in temporary difficulty. It's all about mindset. Did you see the section on swimming techniques in whitewater?
Yes. The basic position for swimming on your back with your feet downstream is such a good tip. It protects your head and lets you fend off rocks with your feet. And keeping your hands and feet on the surface to avoid entrapment is crucial.
Right, and I think the idea of using a ferry angle to swim around hazards is pretty smart too. It's about working with the current instead of fighting it. What did you think about their advice for swimming in shallow versus deep water?
That was interesting. In shallow water, you really have to keep your body flat to avoid getting your feet or hands stuck. And in deep or slow-moving water, using front crawl or breaststroke seems like the way to go. I also found their tips on managing your energy while swimming really useful.
Definitely. Swimming in cold, turbulent water can be exhausting, so it makes sense to conserve your energy and not swim flat out for more than about 10 meters. Did you read about the techniques for getting into an eddy?
Yes, I did. Attacking the eddy line by aggressively swimming across it at a 45-degree angle sounds like a good strategy. The high overarm stroke to help carve the turn into the eddy is also a great technique.
And the rotating method for slower speeds or shallow water makes sense too. Rolling over and over into the eddy might not be the fastest way, but it seems effective. The section on waves was pretty insightful too.
Yeah, deliberately breathing out underwater so you can get a lungful of clean air in the troughs of the waves is crucial. It's easy to forget about exhaling when you're in survival mode. Did you catch the bit about strainers? They sound terrifying.
Strainers are definitely something to avoid at all costs. If you can't avoid one, rolling onto your front and swimming over it is the best bet. Letting your legs get swept under is really dangerous.
Exactly. Avoidance is better than trying to deal with a strainer once you're in it. And their advice on equipment during a swim is practical too. It's all about making a conscious decision whether to hang on to your gear or ditch it.
For sure. If you're at the bottom of a rapid, hanging on makes sense, but at the start, ditching the paddle and focusing on getting to safety is smarter. Kayakers, open boaters, and rafters all have slightly different considerations, which the book explains well.
The part about open boaters keeping their boat downstream to avoid getting trapped or bear-trapped was particularly important. And for rafters, keeping hold of the paddle can be crucial, but there are times when swimming unhindered is better.
It's all about assessing the situation quickly and making the best decision. Overall, the chapter does a great job of covering various scenarios and offering practical advice. It's definitely boosted my confidence in handling potential swims during our trip.
Same here. It's good to have a clear plan and understand the techniques before we hit the water. Safety first.
Liz, I was reading up on the TRTTG principle for water rescues and found it really interesting. Have you heard of it before?
Yeah, I have. It's all about prioritizing low-risk rescue methods before moving on to more hazardous ones. It stands for talk, reach, throw, tow, and go, right?
Exactly. The principle emphasizes starting with the least risky option. For instance, you start by trying to talk the victim into safety if they're cooperative.
Right, and if talking doesn't work, the next step is reaching. You can extend your reach with something like a paddle. It's essential to ensure your safety by getting a firm hold on the bank or raft first.
Absolutely. And if reaching out directly isn't effective, you move to throwing a rescue line. It's fascinating how positioning is crucial when throwing a line to make sure the swimmer is pendulumed into a safe eddy.
Yeah, positioning is key. You have to be far enough downstream from any obstacles and ensure the swimmer sees the line. Shouting rope, rope, and gaining eye contact before throwing is vital.
Definitely. And it's all about practice. You need good hand-eye coordination to track a moving target accurately. Following through with the throw and not wrapping the rope around your hand are crucial points too.
True. Once the swimmer grabs the line, you need to brace against the pull. There are different techniques like the standing brace, sitting brace, and quick waist belay for handling powerful currents.
I found the shoulder belay method interesting. The line goes over the shoulder and down to the waist, making it easier to handle the strain without interfering with the throw.
Yeah, and the swimmer needs to cooperate too. Holding the line over the shoulder while facing downstream helps with the pendulum effect and reduces drag.
Exactly. If the first throw misses, you need to be ready for a second throw. The method for recoiling the rope and throwing again is pretty detailed, involving separating the coils and leading with the bag end.
Right, and for static rescues, you can stand on the end of the rope to free both hands and scoop water into the bag to weight it for another throw. It's all about being prepared and practiced.
And let's not forget dealing with a flipped raft. It can involve several techniques discussed earlier, so knowing the sequence and methods is crucial.
Definitely. Understanding victim behavior is also critical. And in control, competent person is much easier to rescue than someone panicking or experiencing the instinctive drowning response.
Yeah, and for those out of control, like panicking victims, avoiding contact rescues is best. Talking to them calmly or giving them a buoyant object can help them regain control.
For victims experiencing counter-panic, physically shaking them and calling out their name might snap them out of their withdrawn state. It's about adapting the technique to the situation.
It really is. The key takeaway is always assessing the situation quickly and effectively while prioritizing the rescuer's safety. Practicing these methods can make a significant difference in real-life rescues.
Absolutely. Regular practice and understanding these principles thoroughly can save lives. It's crucial for anyone involved in water rescues to be well-versed in these techniques. Hey Sam, let's talk about non-pendulum rescue situations. There are 4 main scenarios where penduluming the victim to the side isn't feasible.
Sure, Liz. The first one would be still or slow-moving water, right? In that case, it seems pretty straightforward.
Exactly. In still or slow-moving water, the rescuer simply pulls the line in hand over hand, bringing the victim to them. Not much force is involved.
Got it. The second situation is when the rescuer is moving at the same speed as the victim, like when throwing a line from a raft. Again, it's just a matter of pulling the line in.
Right. Those 2 situations are relatively simple. Now, the third situation is trickier. It's when the water is fast-flowing all the way to the bank with no eddies or helical flow.
That would usually happen on a canalized section of a river or in a flood drainage channel where the bed and sides are very smooth. In this case, if the swimmer is pendulum towards the bank, the forces can become too strong, causing someone to let go of the line.
Precisely. So, the rescuer should run down the bank at the same speed as the swimmer and pull them in at right angles to the current. That helps reduce the forces involved.
That makes sense. Now, what about the fourth situation? That's when the thrower is parallel to the main flow, either by mistake or necessity, like on the outside of a bend.
Yes. In that scenario, the swimmer is held in the current, creating significant force. The thrower often can't change their position without letting go of the rope. If the current isn't too powerful, the rescuer can move down the bank and adjust the angles.
And if the current is too strong, they'd need to use a sitting brace or belay. A second rescuer can help by grabbing the line and moving down the bank or eddy to change the angles and forces involved.
Exactly. Alternatively, the rescuer can clip the throw line with a tape sling and carabiner and then run down the bank. For situations 3 and 4, if the bank is obstructed, there's another technique.
That's when rescuer B clips a second line to rescuer A's line before it's thrown and moves as far downstream as possible. Once the swimmer grabs the throw line, rescuer B pulls their line in quickly.
Yes, that way, rescuer B can change the angle of pull, making it easier to manage the forces involved and bring the swimmer to safety.
It's all about being prepared and knowing how to adapt to different scenarios. Practicing these techniques regularly can make a huge difference in real situations.
Absolutely. Understanding these non-pendulum situations and knowing how to handle them effectively can be crucial during a rescue.
That's true. Another method I found interesting is the live bait rescue. It's a 2-person technique where one rescuer, connected to a belayer by a quick-release chest harness, jumps into the water to grab the victim. It sounds intense but effective if done correctly.
Yes, live bait is definitely one of the more dramatic rescues. The belayer needs to be really skilled at managing the rope, especially since they have to ensure the rescuer is pendulumed into a safe eddy. It's a good technique when the current is strong, but the execution needs to be flawless to avoid any mishaps.
Definitely. And I noticed the emphasis on having a quick release mechanism for safety. It's crucial in case the rescuer needs to detach quickly. What about the handrail technique? It seems more straightforward but still requires good river reading skills.
The handrail technique is really practical in the right conditions. The rescuer uses a line with overhand knots tied at intervals to wade out and grab the victim or equipment. It's great because the rescuer is supported by the line, reducing the risk of getting swept away. But as you said, reading the river correctly is vital to set it up properly.
For sure. It also mentioned that the line must be anchored so that if the rescuer loses their footing, they get pendulumed back into an eddy. It's these little details that make a big difference in safety. Moving on, the chase boating techniques for rescuing both swimmers and equipment were pretty detailed too. The idea of treating every victim as a potential threat until proven otherwise stood out to me.
That's an important mindset for sure. The principle of presumed insanity is there to protect the rescuer. You have to assume the victim could panic and pose a risk. Even in chase boating, keeping a safe distance until you're sure they won't endanger you is critical.
Right, and the various methods like drag, push, and carry each have their pros and cons. The carry method, for instance, offers less drag and faster movement, but it requires high skill and a cooperative victim. It really highlights the need for practice and strong swimming skills.
Exactly. And assessing the victim's behavior is crucial. If they show signs of panic or the instinctive drowning response, the rescuer has to adjust their approach immediately. I found the part about using the chase boat to provide moral support and directions quite thoughtful. Sometimes just having someone nearby can make a big difference.
Agreed. It seems like a balance between physical rescue techniques and psychological support. The whole section on unconscious victims was also intense. The different strategies, like attaching a throw line or long line, require precise execution. It must be nerve-wracking but rewarding to successfully perform these rescues.
Definitely. The risks are high, especially with unconscious victims. Techniques like the long line or towing require a lot of strength and skill. It's crucial to ensure there are no downstream hazards before attempting these rescues. It's clear that safety and preparation are the top priorities.
For sure. And for equipment rescues, the technique seems simpler but still risky. Like the method for picking up paddles, aiming for one end to avoid running over it. Simple, yet it requires precision. Overall, these techniques are incredibly detailed and emphasize the importance of training and preparation.
Absolutely, Sam. It's all about being prepared and knowing your techniques inside and out. These rescues can be high stress, but with the right training, they can be executed safely and effectively. It's good to review and discuss these methods so we're always ready.
Liz, I was just reading up on some techniques for getting a boat to shore safely. It's filled with danger, especially when the current is strong. Did you know the chase boater has to wait for a favorable stretch of water and be prepared to back off at any time?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And keeping a boat ashore is even harder. It's crucial that the person who lost their boat runs down the bank to offer assistance immediately. Ideally, another member should be on the other shore to help out if the boat lands on the opposite bank.
Exactly. If no help is available right away, the chase boater might use a tape sling to tether the boat to a branch or exposed root until the owner arrives. Have you ever used the nudge method to get a boat to shore?
Oh, the one where the chase boater pushes the boat towards the shore using the bow of his boat. Yes, I have. It's pretty effective because the rescuer isn't physically attached to the boat, so they can back off if needed.
That's the main advantage. There's also the flip and shove method, where if the current is favorable, the boat can be flipped right side up and shoved into a large eddy. This works well if the boat has buoyancy bags.
Right. And then there's the long line method for open boats. The chase boater grabs the downstream swim line or clips a throw line to the downstream end of the boat, then paddles downstream to get ahead of it. They maintain distance until the convoy is within range of an eddy and then use the line to pendulum the boat into the eddy.
Towing on fast-moving or whitewater is hazardous too. On creeks and narrow rivers, it's best to avoid towing. On high-volume rivers, only boat-fitted towing systems should be used. They need to be easy to attach and release.
Yes, painter tows can be improvised for open boats by wrapping the painter around a thwart to create friction and kneeling on the end of the rope for a quick release. But improvised tows should be avoided if used frequently. Investing in a proper system is better.
For sure. There are also pros and cons to different tow systems. A sling tow is easy to release but uncomfortable and interferes with paddling. A chest harness tow is quick to set up and doesn't interfere as much but can make paddling difficult due to the high attachment point.
And if rescuing a swimmer, it's best to approach from upstream to avoid the victim rushing you. If they're conscious, instruct them to turn onto their back facing downstream. Then, grab their PFD shoulder strap to tow them in.
Defensive tactics are crucial too. If a panicking victim grabs you, you can fend them off with your foot or release their grip by bending their thumb back. Always swimming on your back helps keep an eye on the victim and fend them off if needed.
Speaking of intense situations, dealing with a flipped raft is no joke. As a guide, maintaining contact with the raft is essential. Climbing back onto the raft requires using drainage holes or pre-placed handles for leverage.
Once on top, counting heads is critical to ensure no one is trapped under the raft. Making a decision on when to reflip the raft depends on various factors like downstream hazards, proximity of crew, and the ease of reflipping the raft.
If someone is trapped under the raft, flipping it quickly is usually the best option. If that's not possible, getting the raft to a safe location to check underneath is crucial. There are several methods to reflip a raft, like the T-grip, flip line, or team reflip depending on the raft's size and load.
Absolutely. Practicing these techniques regularly ensures that they can be performed efficiently and safely in real situations. It's all about being prepared and knowing the best method to use in any given scenario.
Definitely. Being well prepared and knowing these techniques can make a huge difference in ensuring safety and effectively managing emergencies on the water.